Hey everybody, this is Rusted Rose with Access Entertainment. With us today, the mastermind, the man himself, Dave Wyndorf of Monster Magnet. How are you doing, brother?
Very good. How are you, Russ?
I am doing absolutely wonderful. I was just saying how it's so fitting that we're talking about Monster Magnet, about the delightfully weird new album, Milking the Stars, on Halloween.
There you go. Halloween. The best day of the year. Always my favorite holiday.
Well, it makes me wonder, because you've been living in the same place pretty much your whole life. You're in suburban New Jersey, and you're home today. So will you be rolling up your sleeves tonight for a little neighborly domesticity of handing out candy?
Oh, yeah, sure. No, that's the best, man. I mean, Halloween's the only time where kids actually rule the planet, They get to go out and find out about, like, what you can get away with for just a little imagination. It teaches a lot, Dance around, jump around, to use your imagination, and get paid for it.
True. It's like being a rock star, right?
Exactly.
So now, before we get to the new record, this year marks the 25th anniversary of the band. Does that seem at all surreal to you that a quarter century has gone by and you're still making these wonderful Monster Magnet albums?
Oh, yeah. I mean, after the first 5 years, it seemed surreal. Now it's like beyond. Now it's like, how many lives have I led?
Right.
It's very, very strange.
Well, you go back and look at some of the heroes we grew up with, the Beatles and Led Zeppelin. They couldn't even get out of a decade, and here we are with bands that 25 years, some of our other heroes 40 years on, and it's just...
Yeah, I think I knew when to duck. That was really that's how I lasted so long. It's like, get out of here, get out of places that are not going to happen, and not try to do anything that would be ridiculous in sense of like commercial expectations, or just try not to fit square pegs in round holes,
Right.
So, and it's really paid off for me, because now I've been doing it, like you said, I've been doing it for 25 years. I haven't had a day job in 25 years. It's insane. Great.
They still keep trying to peg you, though, into that metal hole, even though you guys are not metal. They don't get the difference between the heavy music.
That's an unfortunate thing. I mean, if we would have come out in the 70s, we probably would have been a lot bigger.
True.
Because people didn't make that distinction. But no, I got no complaints.
And the industry is such a completely different beast than it was when we were growing up. Bands are now funding albums through crowdfunding campaigns. The albums can be made faster at a fraction of what they used to be. But no one is buying music like they used to. How have you sort of adapted to the machine, or have you sort of sidestepped it?
Everyone's have to adapt. It's a very, very strange world. In a lot of ways, it's much better than it used to be. But sadly, at the top of it all, even with the cheaper recording, which you can record cheaper, there seems to be an overall standard loss. A loss in quality overall for the actual content of the music, in my opinion, anyway. You would think that the internet democracy would allow people to, really, really, step out and experiment with a lot of things, but I find it quite the opposite. I think people, are using the internet to head towards niches that have already been carved out. So, basically the kids aren't all right. You know what I mean? They screwed it up. It's not good. I don't see that much great music coming out these days. And why? Why should there be? If artists aren't getting paid for what they do, why should they care? So I see a lot of sensitive people dropping out, not doing art, or doing art sporadically.
Right.
And that means all art, too. The rest of everybody's just kind of swimming around. There's no live scene in the States, so you can't do it that way either. That's why I go to Europe.
That's the hardest part, and I get that, because I spend a lot of time, because I also do a metal magazine on top of this. I talk with a lot of metal artists, and that scene never died. The scene for heavy music never died over in Europe and everywhere else. It was just here in America.
Yeah, and it's live. The live music scene, the economics, the machine of live music in Europe has always been healthier than it is here. I mean, it used to be healthy here, but for a bunch of reasons, it's a terrible conversation. But for a bunch of reasons, it's just too expensive. You can't afford to be cool in America anymore. Nobody will take the chance. The venues kind of stink. Ticket prices are too high. You can't get into places if you're a kid.
Right.
The main people that the music is made for are banned from being to go to the shows unless they have a wristband, or a lot of places don't do that. So it's basically the whole rock thing, which is designed for, it's designed for kids and people who don't grow old in their head.
Yeah, like you and I.
Yeah, I mean, you know what I mean. And it's like, where are you going to get the new blood from?
Yeah, we've stolen all the mystique and magic of rock and roll, but you're still keeping it alive.
But in Europe, it's alive and well. The drinking age is a soft 18. They don't have crazy insurance rates over there like they do, insurance problems like they do here. They trust their young people to take care of themselves, and they do. It's only over here where we don't trust them, and they don't.
We've got a democracy where we tell you how you will live.
It's kind of weird, dude.
It is. So,
you know what I mean? It's like, be careful. You're going to have a couple of generations of people who don't know what they're doing.
There you go. Well, let's talk about the good stuff, because you are still keeping that alive. Let's talk about Milking the Stars, a reimagining of The Last Patrol. Last Patrol was such a great album, and the obvious question is, why would you recreate the album you just released? But you've been talking about doing something in this vein for quite a few years now.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, I have been. I always wanted to do this kind of stuff. And the reason I did it this time was because I basically moved my base of operations for all recording from Monster Magnet right to my hometown. So it's not as big of a deal for me to mess around with stuff in a qualitative way.
Right.
Outside of just demo land. I could actually record stuff right here in New Jersey in my home, 2 blocks away from my house, and treat every Monster Magnet project as if it was born and raised in the house. This is the first time I've done that. Before, I always went on some journey or hired some, an outside producer,
right,
to do stuff, and that just makes that kind of experimentation a nice notion. But now I can actually implement that thing. So I decided to, since this was a new record and still fresh in my head, I knew where all the tracks were. Right. I remember looking at the track listing. I know where everything is. I could change this, no problem. And it started off with a couple songs, and then it turned into the whole thing. It wasn't planned to be released at first. It was just an experiment.
Oh, wow.
But then as I did it, I was like, oh, this is great. I mean, I like it. So it's cool.
Well, it made me wonder. It's like, and I think you just answered the question anyway, but I was going to ask, did you know what you wanted to do with each track going in, or did it just sort of flow organically in the moment?
Yeah, you kind of know. I kind of know because there's melodies that won't leave me alone. There's parts in songs that are maybe a bridge of a song, or maybe one beat in one section of say one of the songs on Last Patrol, and I'm like, that's a really nice melody. That poor melody. That guy should have got like 4 minutes on a record, but he didn't. It's like he tried. He was a really nice part, and he fits the bill, but that really could have been done in a different way. That could have been cool. And of course, I mean, music's just a series of notes. There's a finite number of notes out there. Why not take it and do something else with it?
Right.
So I started to do it, and I was like, wow, this is really fun. Cutting drum loops from existing drum tracks. Like, I didn't bring the whole band back in on this. This was something that was done pretty much by myself and Phil Cavano,
right,
who I record with. He's a guitarist in Monster Magnet. And so just cut up drums and then arrange them so they'd be in a somewhat different arrangement. Then I track on top of that, retrack stuff. Maybe sometimes use the bass from the original one. Most of the time recut. And then from then on, it was just like, I'm a mutant, obsessive experiment. Like, I want to put organ on this. It makes it sound like in 1968. Okay, well, I have to record the correct guitars and organ and then mix it the way they would mix it back then, just to get a different vibe.
Well, yeah, that's the key. It's funny. I was listening to the album driving into work yesterday morning, so I could only hear like the first half, and I was having these like 60s flashbacks and grinning like an idiot.
Oh, good. Awesome.
Yeah.
I mean, there's something about 60s, late 60s, mid 60s to mid 70s recording. The process they had then, the stuff that the chance they took the vibe of those records, it's outstanding. I mean, I really think they kind of like, everything has a curve, right? Everything has a quality curve. Mm-hmm. I mean, and the fidelity may be better later, later than the 70s. But I really think the actual methods and the kind of stuff they came up with at that time, very, very special sound.
Man.
Very, very special. They really were on something.
Yeah, very innovative, a really nice vibe. Then, it's funny because I got to listen to the other half when I was driving home in the afternoon, and I'm taking the back way, and there's all these old buildings and houses that have been like left dormant for, I don't know, 30, 40 years, you know, and I'm watching these things in the fields as I'm driving by, and the album, as I'm going, is getting darker and more ominous. It was like a perfectly weird soundtrack for the day, you know?
That sounds great, man. Thank you.
Now, you take a song like Paradise, which is now No Paradise for me on the new album. That was already a somewhat dark song to begin with, but you sort of just, with this album, pushed it further along those tracks. The bass is busier on this rendition. It's one of my favorite rearrangements.
Thanks. That's one of those ones where it just started where I liked the middle section of the song. There was a bridge, the beginning of a bridge, and it was just a bass line, dun 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 dun. And I was like, wow, this could have been a song by its own. And of course, it haunted me.
Right.
So I just set it up with that. I was like, I'm gonna take 2 minutes of this, try to work up 2 minutes of this all by itself and see what happens. And then just quickly wrote a bunch of lyrics. I think I was thinking about like Gil Scott-Heron or Eric Burden or something, you know, those guys in the 60s that would just kind of go out there and like let it all hang out. Yeah, you know, it's kind of screaming like from the pulpit, from the rock pulpit, you know. And I did it pretty quickly and was like, oh yeah, this feels really good.
Now, what were some of the things you got to play with on this, instrumentally wise and recording technique wise, that maybe you didn't get to do with the previous effort?
Well, I use a lot of keyboards on this one, which I don't usually do because we don't have a keyboardist in the band.
Right.
It was never one of those things where I'm like, we're going to be a keyboard band, which has its own set of rules. And I love to play keyboards. I'm not very good, but I try really hard. And so I got to have some organ on there. And then Mellotron, got to have Mellotron. So that, once you get those kind of instruments and you feature them prominently, changes the vibe of everything. So if I go in and say, this one's going to feature Mellotron or a lot of keyboards, it means I'm going to strip a lot of the old guitars away because there's too much competition in the sound.
Right.
You know, there's only enough room in the glass of water for so much water. And all of a sudden that forces a composer to just go, all right, you have to deal with this. Get that in the mix, get rid of stuff, and then I would just think about what about those kind of songs made me happy. And I recorded a lot of the stuff with delay, all my effects on the tracks that went in. So I didn't mix it afterwards. Like I'd summon up, I'd sit there with a guitar and pull up an old analog delay and a fuzz box and plug it in, and that would be the sound that's recorded instead of waiting to mix.
Right.
So committing to the sound, which is why a lot of stuff sounds a little chuddy and lo-fi on that record, because it's all old effects played onto, I would say tape, but it wasn't tape, but played to the track with the effects on it.
Right.
Which is not the best thing for fidelity, but it's everything for mood.
Well, yeah, and it has that tape sort of feel to it. You know, it doesn't sound all digital and everything, which is really nice. And if you can use the word without sounding cliche and trite, the album really is very vibey, and I love that about it. So now, because you said you went in basically knowing what you were going to do with this stuff, but did any of the tracks at the end of the day turn out in a way that surprised you?
Yeah, very much so, because I knew what I wanted to do conceptually, but I didn't know what I wanted to do with each track. My main worry is that I would just run out of gas by the time I got to like that 3 tracks, and then go, all right, well, it was a great idea for 2 songs. Now what am I going to do with the rest of them? The stuff that surprised me that was really fun was I didn't know what to do with Last Patrol. How to redo that, because it was already done. It was a big giant song.
Right.
And crazy you'll never beat it, I was like, I can't beat this. It's like a 7-minute, song. No matter what I do, it's always going to be the same. So I designated that to be a live track.
Right.
So, all right, we'll use a live track. But when I listened to it back in the morning after I decided not to do it, I just my ear caught a drum part. Booga, booga, boom, boom, bum, booga, boom. And I was like, well, that's a song right there. So I just cut out a small loop and then wrote Let the Circus Burn over top of that. So that was a surprise. That turned out to be really, really cool with, organs and mellotron flute and all this stuff, all from like literally a 15-second drum loop.
It turned into like
so just kept tracking over that and built it up. And that was a big surprise. I was like, wow, it shouldn't be that easy, but sometimes it is.
The best stuff usually does flow organically like that.
It's true. It's very true.
rumor has it your previous album, Mastermind, may get a similar reimagining, if you will.
Yeah, I'm doing it right now.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I'm doing it right now. I've been doing it for like 3 weeks now. Yeah, it's insane. This is probably the last reimagining I'll be doing for a while. I was like, what am I doing? I think I'm supposed to go forward. But the thing about this is for a couple of reasons. One, I can mess about in a very quick time frame in between tours. Like I can't sit down and write a whole record and then teach the whole record to a band and then record it and still be on the road.
Right.
And we have to tour now. I mean, that's the only place where the money is.
Right.
Nobody's buying this shit. I mean, it's like, I'd like to reimagine my wallet. That's what I'd like to reimagine. So how can I get cool stuff out there while I'm, shut down for a year? And this is what I figured I'd just go in and do the Mastermind as well.
Wow.
Because, and for the other reason for Mastermind is that I wasn't really happy with the actual final mixes of that.
Mm-hmm.
It was recorded a little bit too slick, and now it's just strange and weird, and a lot of the rock stuff is gone, replaced with like acoustics and sitars, and like weird melancholy vocals and more trons, more stuff like that. Basically dove right back into the same toy box as I did for the reimagining of Last Patrol, but with different songs, way more spaced out. This Mastermind will be way more spaced out, and plus a bunch of new songs came out of it as well.
Oh, cool! So we'll have some new stuff, some reimagined stuff next year, I'm assuming, to keep the train rolling and everything. Well, sweet.
Cool.
If you would take us back to your days in the Jersey, New York rock scene, and share what that was like for you and how that impacted you as a person and as a musician.
Oh wow! Well, I had two New York rock scenes. One as a fan in the the mid '70s, and then one as a performer in the late '70s.
Right.
It was all utterly fantastic, and I first went up there as a fan, going to the Academy of Music and seeing like Roxy Music, UFO, the sensational Alex Harvey Band, Hawkwind, Black Sabbath,
right,
Genesis. I was like 14, 14 or 15, just blew my mind. All for like $5 a ticket, $5, 2 shows a night. New York was just this place that was alive, completely alive. Shows everywhere, really cheap. Madison Square Garden shows, Alice Cooper, David Bowie, Electric Light Orchestra, Rolling Stones, Paul McCartney and Wings. It seemed like it was going to last forever. When I was that young, I was like, the world's going to be like this forever, and someday, I'll grow up and I could be part of it. It changed very quickly with punk rock,
right?
And that really, really turned me on. So then I was back to New York again, except this time in a band at CBGB's, and then it became real for me. My dreams weren't like just being a spectator at the Garden. Now they were a reality of playing in a place that I could really comprehend being part of. A shitty dive bar. And then I stayed there for years, in and out of bands, just living in New York. It was an amazing time. Really, really good time for me, And the punk rock was really, really cool because it gave everybody a chance to shoot for something that wasn't. You didn't have to go to the Garden to make it. At that point, I remember thinking, most of the bands there were going, well, when they're going to play Madison Square Garden, that's not going to happen. We're not Asia.
I remember talking to Richie Weiss from Dust not too long ago. And
wow, Richie Weiss is one of my heroes.
Yeah, and he was talking about, he used to call it Ramones spotting. They'd go out Ramones spotting. But, all right, so last question then. The East Coast has a totally different vibe from L.A. Do you think the character of the East Coast is infused in your songwriting style?
Yes, unfortunately it is. Only because, I don't know if the character is in actual music, because I've listened to so much British rock my whole life and Detroit rock. But every once in a while I'll listen to the records and I can hear a New Jersey accent on it. And I'm like, oh, really? Come to me, my love, and oh, no, it's just Staten Island there. There might be some East Coast. I'll tell you what there is. There's some East Coast cynicism there. We play psychedelic music, but the lyrics are rarely very forgiving of anything. They're always like, let's get on with it. That's very East Coast.
Awesome. Dave Wyndorf, Monster Magnet, the new album Milking the Stars, reimagining of Last Patrol, out November 18th, I believe, here in the States. Thank you so much for taking the time, brother. A happy Halloween to you. Have fun tonight, and we look forward to seeing you out on the road, man.
Right on.